Way. We do have extras, so see Brenda or Kelsey and we'll get that signed. I want to welcome you today to the United Way Partner Grantee presentations. My name is Shawn Hines and I'm a current board member, and I see lots of faces in the audience that I know, so thank you for coming today. I would like to welcome not only our partner agencies, but board members, impact committee members, and community members to this presentation. United Way of Yellowstone County is committed to working closely with our local nonprofits to have lasting change in our community. We are working in 4 focused areas: crisis stabilization, senior independence, school success, and school readiness. We're excited to have these partner agencies present about their work and what impact the United Way grant has had on the work that they're doing. We have a QR code that's been passed out that will actually give you a snapshot of each of the partner organizations, so please feel free to use that. Why are we here? Well, obviously, to highlight the good work of our partners and the work that they're doing for transformation in our community. We're also here because this is our United Way campaign. Our season is September to December, and we want to highlight the dollars. Why is that important? Last year, United Way raised $730,000 through campaign and leveraged $2 million going into our community. It's important. So quick update. We're going to have some changes over this next year for our partners. The first change is we're going to have a request for proposal coming out in January. So we'll make sure you know about that. The application will be online. Technology, we're going to move forward. It's being awarded for a 1-year period of time. We'll have community members involved in allocation. So we invite you to be a part of that process. The campaign coordinators, community members, we want you to be a part of that process. And we're going to have Go Grants, smaller awards, actually leveraging help with projects or capital needs that otherwise may not have funding. So stay tuned. We'll provide information to you. The partner information meeting will be in January, probably early January. So we have a time limit today. Each partner organization was asked to present for 7 minutes and then allow for questions in the audience, by the audience, for 3 minutes. So I'm going to be the timekeeper. I'll give you the 1-minute call when we're ready to move to 7 minutes, or 6 minutes, moving on to 7 minutes. And then I have the annoying alarm that sounds at 10 minutes. So sorry about that. So without further ado, let's call Adult Resource Alliance up. We're also going to do the partners in alphabetical order. Welcome. I'll allow you to introduce yourself and we'll go forward.
Well, we're A, so I guess we get to go first. Good afternoon. We are from the Adult Resource Alliance, here to talk to you about our Meals on Wheels program. I am Lori Poole, and I'm the Nutrition Program Director. And I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I'm the coordinator for the Meals on Wheels program. And we are meeting a tremendous need in our community. Our guidelines are that our participants be over 60 years of age, because we depend on older Americans on ACT funds. They are not driving and unable to get to the grocery store and to the meal sites or things like that, so without assistance. They're homebound, they're living alone with someone who is unable to help provide one healthy meal each day. Of course, there are always gray areas, such as, let's say, a child lives with a parent, but he's an over-the-road truck driver, so we would then put that mom on Meals on Wheels and provide the meals for her, even though an adult child is living in the home. We ask questions about food insecurity when they call. We ask, do they have food in their home? Can they get to the store, or can they cook the food if they have the food in the home? So we try try to discern who needs these programs the most. And sometimes we have to say they don't fit our program, and then we try to do a warm handoff to the food bank and family services, and or can they come to our meal sites and have a meal. Like, the thing I hear the most is they should not be driving from a child, you know. And if we had everyone that should not be driving, we couldn't afford to have them all on our program. So we have to discern that, and that's probably the part that I like least, because I'd like everyone to be on it if I could. We try to stretch our federal Older Americans Act and state and county meal levy funds as far as possible, and we do this by asking our participants to contribute towards the meals. We find that if they have skin in the game, they're less likely to give them to the neighbors or feed the pets or things like that. So we try to be very responsible with the funds that we have, and United Way funds, when you hear of a shutdown in the government, we have no fear, because we have a very diverse funds, and United Way is one of the ways that we can assure that our seniors in Yellowstone County will be taken care of at some time like that if the government were to shut down for a period of time. And so we appreciate you. Oh, I'm sorry, I had a couple notes from people, and this is the heart of what we do. This is from a daughter. My dad could not have remained in his home for all these years without your wonderful service. My dad enjoyed seeing the drivers, and they were always so gracious and kind to him. He is having difficulty adjusting to his new home, but I pray he will one day adjust. And we had this gentleman, he was a farmer out west of town, and these things just break my heart when they can't be home alone, but he was on the program for 5 or 6 years. So, and then this is another gentleman, he is a 72-year-old vet who has severe COPD and chronic neuropathy pain. I can no longer drive. I don't know what I'd do without Meals on Wheels. They have been a godsend to me. Between Meals on Wheels and Ensure, I'm able to keep up my weight. And so I could have stacks and stacks of these notes of the people that you help us to serve. So thank you.
The Meals on Wheels program in Yellowstone County serves seniors in Billings, Laurel, and then in our rural communities, Huntley, Shepherd, and Warden. We currently have 20 routes that we serve in these communities, and our drivers are all volunteers. And so we could not run this program without them. Trying to get volunteers these days is very challenging though, so we're experiencing that right now. We deliver 230 meals per day in Billings, 23 meals a day in Laurel, and then the rural community, we're serving 17 meals daily, and that's Monday through Friday. On the weekends, we provide frozen meals for our seniors that have that need. On the following numbers I'm going to share with you, just so you can get an idea of what we do in a year's time frame. These are from our last fiscal year. We prepared and delivered 88,886 meals for participants in the Billings, Laurel, Huntley, Shepherd, and Warden areas. And that was 679 individual seniors that received these meals. And 12,117 hours were donated by 181 driver volunteers. So you can see how that would impact us without our drivers helping us get those meals to our seniors. Our current project, I'm giving the 1 minute warning, is we're working on making 350 Blizzard/emergency boxes, and this is our 5th year running with this program. And we purchase the food, we assemble the boxes, we deliver them to the seniors that are on our program, ask them to put them in their storage areas did have 2 days we had to shut down last year when our main walk-in went down. We lost a lot of product, wasn't able to cook that day. The second time was a weather-related day, and so these came in very handy. And during the COVID period, we actually made a 3-meal box so that if some of our kitchen staff who cook for these folks every day were to become ill, we could rely on that if we had to. Some of these seniors have like spare meals in their pantry, and some do not have any food. So super important, so we're glad about that. We have brought our annual report today if you'd like one to see what other programs we have within the Adult Resource Alliance. And be happy to hand those out. Are there any questions for us?
Questions from the group? We have a couple of minutes for Adult Resource Alliance.
You mentioned they have meal sites. How many meal sites?
You mean our congregate meal program?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, we have 11 locations in Yellowstone County, and that's actually where seniors who are still able to drive and want to come and have some social time and a nutrition meal can come. So, yeah.
So you mentioned that you have criteria and only so many that you can take. Do you have unmet need, or is there a waiting list?
No, we do not have a waiting list. We've added probably 3 routes in the last year and a half, especially during the COVID. We had to add those routes pretty quickly because we were able to move some of those folks that were really in need onto our program. We kind of stretched the rules a little bit during that time to help out.
Thank you very much. Senior Services. Welcome, thank you.
My name is Tyler Amundsen. I'm the executive director of Big Sky. And it might be short a couple. So Stacy, I know you. So I'm with Big Sky Senior Services. We serve seniors in the community in home and helping them stay in their homes independent as long as possible. And a couple things I want to share with you is, as you can see, we serve over 400 clients in the community a year. That number is growing. As I'm sure you just heard from the Alliance, our population is growing rapidly. And so that's going to be one of the biggest challenges facing us. The 2 primary programs we serve folks in our home through are Senior Helping Hands, which is a program that goes into people's homes and helps them manage day-to-day living. So anything from helping them cook some food, to setting up their medications for them, which can be a big deal, actually. I spent some time with one of our nurses this last year just kind of following them around for a day. And we're talking about people who fundamentally can't function in their homes without some of those basic supports, and med setups can be one of the things that sends them to the hospitals or lands them into crisis really quickly. And so even that sounds so simple to us, can be a big deal. So the other major program we have is prevention of elder abuse and its payee services. And that's one of our primary ways we do case management. So we have about 105 clients in that program currently that we pay their bills for them each month, but we also then work to provide resources in other areas of the community. And that's a lot of work. Some of our clients, as you all know, with many of your clients, those of you that are in this work, we spend a little bit of time with, but there's always about 20% or so that you spend the majority of your time with. And anywhere from, currently we just had helped somebody pay to get their home appraised that was handed over them by a dying loved one, and they had no resources to do this because they can barely make ends meet anyway. And so simple things like that make a big difference. So, and so we try to do all these things to keep people in their homes, as well as do advocacy in the community for seniors as well. In this last year, we've also really tried to dig in our dementia-friendly program. So I have brochures for you all as I wrap up today, but just want folks to be aware of that. One of the big things I saw in the questions for today were like, what are we looking at for future needs in the community? And United Way helps us look at some of the big pictures. One of the challenges we're going to have with the growing number of seniors is there is no continuum of care for seniors in the community. So when you start to age, there isn't someone you go and say, answer all my questions. The Alliance does a really good job through the Resource Center of helping provide that. But there's still people who have big questions out there. And so one of the directions we're looking at is how we can just support an understanding of what it means to age in our community. So we're looking at how we can do that. Yeah, I was going to actually ask if there was any questions for me. And I have to apologize to you, I'm running late because I'm jet lagged from just coming back from a 2-week trip to Israel. So my head is still not screwed on straight, so. Okay. Yeah.
I'm a board member of United Way.
Yeah.
A question that I've got, the answer is often more money, I get that, and we are working on it. Is there anything else we could do to potentially help?
So the impact statement I gave you guys, I think actually exists because of the reporting we do back to United Way with our grant. So we get a small portion of our money from United Way, but your reporting actually helps us to consistently kind of track what we're doing. And I think United Way has a pretty big role to play as far as helping us be better at being nonprofits. So, because of your reporting, I'm able to sit down with that sheet every year and kind of work out who we give to, or who we're supporting in the community. I think there's other things United Way could do in that area to like look at our nonprofit and say, do you need help in this area, or do you need help in that area? Do you need help with grant writing or fundraising or marketing, those kind of things. So, it always is more money, but there are other resources out there too. And sometimes helping us learn how to write grants better can be something that could be useful. So, yeah. Well, we got lots more presentations, so thank you all. I have brochures I'll hand around too as I wrap up here, so you have access to our resources. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Next alphabetically is Boys and Girls Club.
All right, can you guys hear me all right? Well enough? Okay. Good afternoon, my name is Brian Dennis. I'm the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Yellowstone County. It's Annie Hassick, our vice president of program advancement. I'm part of the team that raises the money. Annie gets the fun of spending it and doing all the fun stuff with the kids. So she's going to talk about the fun stuff. I want to first say thank you. Thank you to United Way. I cannot verify that for the last 51 years United Way has been beside us, but I can verify that when our original director landed in Billings in 1970 looking for a car top carrier to put a untanned buffalo hide in, The first person he spoke with was a United Way volunteer, well, community chest back then, that steered him towards the group that was trying to put together a Boys and Girls Club. So we go back together that far, and I want to say thank you. Currently, we utilize the United Way investment to support our Lockwood Clubhouse experience. And while we're under school success, we look at that from the angle of how can we help remove barriers? How can we better position our members to be successful during the school day and remove some of the barriers? I could give you a football analogy about linebackers and linemen and fullbacks, but I won't. But our role is about helping kids find their own path to success. And some of the outcomes that we're very proud of, that we work very hard. And as we, like Tyler said, one of the questions is how can we work together in the future? It's about creating a completely trauma-informed experience. I know that's fuzzy, right? But one of our new strategic priorities, not new, but how we're phrasing it, is around creating the best possible place for kids of all needs and abilities, regardless of their situation, to find what they need. So that's the direction we're working and those sorts of things. But as we have worked over the last several years, very proud of some of the progress we've made, and Andy's going to give a couple specific examples. But some of the outcomes that are measured every spring through our National Youth Outcomes Survey that is administered by Boys and Girls Clubs of America, they tell me we are the largest youth surveying organization in the world, or in the country anyway. We serve several 100,000 kids and teens across the country through this survey. And in Yellowstone County, Lockwood Clubhouse specifically, which like I said is where we utilize our United Way funds, 90% of the kids that took the survey, and those are all third grade and up, 90% of our Lockwood kids said the club was a safe, positive environment for them this last year. That's up 8% from the year before. Having an adult connection, which was up on the slide earlier, talking about a connection with staff, a positive connection with at least one adult. 87% of the kids in our Lockwood Club, which is up 4%, said they had that, which we're very proud of. We work very hard at building those relationships because that's what makes the difference for our kids. Some of you heard me say if it's not fun, we're not interested. 92% of the kids at our Lockwood Clubhouse said the club is fun. It's the fun place for them, and that's up 13% over the previous year. Obviously, safety is a huge, huge deal for us. And physical safety, when I feel physically safe when I'm at the club. 92% of our Lockwood kids said they feel physically safe. That was up 16%. A lot of that is training. We got some great new space. We've made some other improvements, physical space, but a lot of that is the connection and making sure the kids feel safe while they're at the club. And finally, the one we're probably the proudest of, at least I am, 100% of our kids at the Lockwood Clubhouse, and they were the highest club in our organization this year, 100% of the kids said the club was an emotionally safe place for them. That was up 17%. And I can tell you that is entirely about the work we do to train our staff, which is one of the metrics we report to United Way. But with that, I will let Annie talk about a couple of examples of how we have worked to make the club a better place for our kids.
Thank you. So like Brian said, I get to have fun, and so even though everything I do has to translate into numbers for this survey, for Brian, for United Way, so they can see the impact, for me it's not so much the numbers, it's the stories, and it's the kids that I get to hang out with, and the staff I get to be with every day. So two of the areas that Brian talked about, emotional safety and fun. So to kind of bring it home with a little just story about each. One of the things that we started about a year ago in our Lockwood Clubhouse in regards to emotional safety is we brought in a therapy dog. Our unit director just happens to have a dog that was certified as a therapy dog. She also happens to be my daughter. So she's like, this would be great if we could bring Baloo into the clubhouse, and we talked to Brian about it, and so we kind of had to jump through a little bit of hoops to see what it would take to have a therapy dog after school each day, or a few days a week. And of course we had some concerns. It was a new program for us, and just kind of learning all the ins and outs of it. But we went to the superintendent thinking, okay, how's he gonna react? And the superintendent was like, absolutely, let's give it a try. And then, gave the information out to the parents, and we thought, okay, the parents might be a little concerned. The particular dog is a Staffordshire Terrier, so for all intents and purposes, pit bull mix. What are they gonna say about this dog that sometimes has a bad reputation, or are there gonna be a bunch of kids with allergies or whatnot? But fast forward, we've had Blue in the clubhouse for a year. The kids do amazing with Blue. The kids love Blue. The parents come in on the days Blue is supposed to be there. They don't say hi to the staff. They say, hey, where's Blue? Is Blue here? If Blue takes a day off because it's too hot or too cold, we hear about it. So it has been amazing the amount of kids who have started to learn how to self-regulate when they're upset, when they're having, traumatic experiences in their life. They come to the club and they can sit down with Blue and feel a sense of calm and a sense of, okay, I belong. And I also got the 1 minute warning, so real quick with fun. Quick story about this summer. We let just about anybody sign up for club. We're always willing to give it a try, no matter what the deficiencies are, no matter where a child is, we're gonna try and meet them. We had a parent sign a little boy up this summer in Lockwood. He came to the club the first week, and we were like, oh man, maybe we didn't get all the information on this child. We come to find out this child is in a classroom during the school year with support staff directly for him, in a classroom of 5 kids on the autism spectrum. So we were like, oh boy. But we worked with the parent, we worked with the teachers. This child spent all summer in our clubhouse, surrounded by 25, 30 kids in every group, not just the 5 kids he was used to, and by all accounts and purposes, had a really fun summer and taught our staff a lot about working with another child that has some special needs. So broadened his experience and broadened ours, and that's, at the end of the day, what it's really worth to us, being able to broaden the experiences on both ends. Questions? I think I did that really fast and kept it in a minute, so.
Why Lockwood Clubhouse? Why is that the chosen?
Given it's just what we decided to do. We had other grant funding and other clubhouses that were able to do that. So Lockwood was the one when we wrote the grant several years ago. We're like, hey, there's opportunity to use some funds there, so that's why we picked that one. But all of the clubhouses function similarly, slight different variation depending on we'll change the name of the suspects to protect their identity, but all the clubhouses are a little bit different, but the basic experience is the same. It's just that's where we needed the money when we wrote the grant.
How many sites, how many kids, how many staff?
We currently have 4 of our normal 5 sites open. We do not have enough staff. We have 44 on right now, 44, 45. And last year we served 1,015 kids, which is about 50% of what we were pre-COVID. Some of that is intentional, given the load, I guess I'll call it, that the kids bring to club. The emotional demands and the capacity that they require to support them and do some of the things that we now know that the kids need. Some of that is staffing, and some of that is, we're just working to get kids back because we've been so limited for several years, like everybody else, right? We've had restrictions that we never anticipated, so we're working to get some of those kids back, but there's multiple reasons for that.
Any other questions?
That's it. He's got one.
I just want to know where you got that cool tie.
I don't remember. It was in the closet this morning. I'm like, hey, I'll wear that
The
one.
closet, that's where it is.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Do you all have a wait list for your programs?
We do, especially for yes, across most of the clubs. The one that really surprises us is our teen program. We serve kids 6 to 18 years old, and our Bear Family Clubhouse and our Medicine Crow Clubhouse have a wait list for our older middle school, high school kids, which we've never had before.
Sounds great. Thank you
Sean
very
says we're
much.
done.
Next, alphabetically, Casa.
Here.
Great, thank you.
having me today. Drew McLeod, CASA of Yellowstone County. I've been with them since 2013. And like, get the power. Yeah, there's only 4 slides, so. The other day, we were presenting on CASA, and after we were done, the gentleman that was in the audience came up and he said, you know, I got really quiet after the first video. We had a short video on how a kid gets into the foster care system and what happens and how everything changes. And he said, you know, that brought up some stuff. He says, I was in foster care. And he says, I don't remember my CASA's name, but I remember that I didn't have to speak in court. I didn't have to tell my story again. I knew that person was gonna take care of things for me. And I remember that he was there all the time. So that's what CASAs do. They provide that hope and that support and that consistency for a child that's entered the foster care system through no fault of their own. So our mission is to advocate for a safe and permanent home for abused and neglected children right here in Yellowstone County. Our vision is to provide a highly trained advocate for every abused and neglected child in the Yellowstone County foster care system. How do we do that? We utilize community volunteers, hundreds of them, to bring the wisdom of the community to bear on the court and to be the consistent person in the child's life when their entire world has been turned upside down. One advocate is assigned to one sibling group of one child. So unlike the rest of the system, they're just focusing on that child or that sibling group. Last year, and I think it'll be on the next slide, 420 children were served by 172 volunteer advocates who were supported by 32 volunteer peer coordinators. Volunteer peer coordinators are volunteer coaches and mentors that help support advocates. And they were supported by 10 staff. The population that we serve are children that have entered foster care, 0 to 18 years old, and again, through no fault of their own. The other day, I was asked, well, what's the value proposition for having an advocate? And from national research, we know that children with a CASA do better in school, they receive more services, they build more protective factors, they're less likely to re-enter care, and are more likely to find permanency, reunification, guardianship, or adoption compared to those without. And I think you'll hear later from Tumbleweed that we know that kids that age out of foster care, the statistics for them are horrendous. Locally, we know that children with a volunteer advocate have their medical, education, and safety needs identified and met nearly 90% of the time. If those needs aren't being met, the court and child protective services are notified so that efforts can be made to meet those needs. What are we most proud of? As an agency, our collaborative efforts with Family Recovery Court and the ICWA Specialty Court. ICWA is the Indian Child Welfare Act. It's a huge act. I won't go into explaining all of it, but it basically says that Native children are to be placed with Native families, if at all possible. And 30% of the kids in care in Yellowstone County are Native children. So our agency is proud of the work that we've done to be culturally sensitive, appropriate, and we come from the never about us without us when working with our Native American friends. For our volunteer advocates, their success stories, that's what we're most proud of. The little wins that make for big impacts. So successful advocacy for more child visits, more parent-child visits, educational support, counseling, pet visits, renewed family connections, cultural connections for the Native American. Reunification, the parents have encouragement of a volunteer CASA. School success and resource connections. That's where many of these other agencies come in. A consistent visitor. And I have to say this respectfully, when we can reduce or end government involvement with that family. Why is United Way funding important? It pays for the less flashy stuff that nonprofits all have. For example, the rent, the copier lease, and the software that we need. The other thing is it's important is it signals to other grantors, donors, that there's community support and need for these services. It's a key piece of the funding mosaic that keeps CASA sustainable. For our future, we may be looking at using paid staff to serve kids. And that may bring in folks that wanted to volunteer but can't. Volunteering is often a privilege. And these cases, kids in the foster care system can last 2 years or more. So last week in Yellowstone County, there were just under 700 children in care. 225 of them have a volunteer court-appointed special advocate. The rest are served by 3 incredibly passionate and talented attorney GALs, but they simply do not have the time to give that one-to-one contact that a volunteer advocate does. COVID, one of the questions was how has COVID affected us? It's altered our work for sure, but we learned to use technology better to make things more efficient. So I want to thank the United Way. I think I have 2 more slides. Let's see what they are. Yeah, those are the facts. 8,000 volunteer hours, 1,600 one-on-one children visits, over 2,000 official reports, and attended nearly 900 court hearings in the past year. So thank you, United Way, for your support. Every bit contributes to better outcomes for children in the foster care system. Questions? Please, have some questions, because somebody else does, I know. Yes?
When you have so many children in the foster care system in this community, how do you decide who gets a CASA volunteer or advocate?
Sure. Possibly one of the worst parts of our job. We create a priority list, and so what would bump a child up on the priority list is the type of abuse, where they're placed, whether they've re-entered, and then we also allow staff to make that determination of things that are less tangible. They're reading the story, so it's like, wow, this thing has gone wrong for so long, how can we help?
You had mentioned like volunteerism is changing for you, so you're looking at paid staff. Can you just tell us a little bit more about like what you're experiencing as far as volunteerism changing?
Sure. So before COVID, we were recruiting nearly 100 advocates a year. Since COVID, it's been cut in half. The people that are coming to us are staying with us. The average stay of a volunteer right now is 4 years. That's 2 years above the national average for CASA. I think it's much like your experience as well. People, I don't want to say their priorities have changed, but they've decided to spend more time with family or work, or they just have tapped out of the labor.
How many more CASAs could you use if everybody in Billings decided we wanted to volunteer? 100, 200, 300?
Probably another 200 volunteers. You know, it's cases take 2 years, so it's a big commitment. About 5 to 15 hours.
How does someone become a CASA advocate?
Great question. Hopefully you'll come visit with me. We hold twice a month information sessions, and those are no obligation sessions. So, you know, come and learn. There is an interview process, and then there's a vetting process as well. We're going to do all sorts of background checks on you, because what's the last thing we want to do? We want somebody that shouldn't be working with kids in the system. So, and then there's 8 weeks of training. It's about 30 hours, and it's required 12 hours of continued training. Most folks tell us that yes, the initial part is very busy, but once you get settled, that 5 to 15 hours a month seems to fit.
Great, thank you very much.
So thanks for all the questions.
Family service.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Stacy Brown. I'm the Director of Family Service, and it's nice to see all of you. It seems like we've all kind of collaborated over the last few years, so I hope that we all do well in our needs. Anyway, I wanted to tell you a little bit about in the middle of the winter and said, these people aren't doing well here and they need help. And that was the beginning of our mission, to feed, furnish, and fortify. And so nothing much has changed. We've added on programs, but probably one of the programs that you know a lot about is our food program, because I know that we actually help a lot of the organizations that are in here. And remarkably, back in 2021, our audit is still being completed, so I don't have the 21-22 figures. But we gave out 4.5 million pounds of food to the community and to surrounding areas. The question is always, well, who do you serve and how does it happen? Well, we serve anybody that comes through the door and anybody that calls on the phone and says we have a need. So along with providing all the food, we provide rent and utility assistance. The thing with the rent and utility is that if a person can have a stable home and have assistance, then they're able to go to work. Their children are able to continue in school and they have hope. But if they don't have that rental assistance, things get pretty tough for them because they end up being homeless. So that's probably, although the food is important, the home is probably the most important. I think in this last year, we helped over 206 families stay in their home, which is pretty remarkable for a small organization like ours. But we do it because of United Way. United Way is actually the foundation and the beginning of what we budget for the year. And once we have our understanding with United Way, then we go and we can say to our other funders, here's where we are, here's the foundation, here's the dependable money, here's the organization that works with us side by side, year after year, and we're so thankful for that. One of the questions that we were given was include client perspectives, and I thought, oh my gosh, well, this morning I had 50 people in waiting for rent, utility assistance, and food. So I thought I'm gonna be brave, I'm just gonna go out there and say, hey, I need this is a part that I'm missing, and ask them, what is your perspective? And the perspective was, your door is always open, you're kind, you take in anyone that comes through, and if there's a conflict, you find a way to work it out so that that person is not sent away. So that's what I'm proud of about family service. The question was, what are you the most proud of? That's what I'm proud of. I'm proud of our staff. But the biggest thing is that I'm thankful for our partnership. And I wanted to say that more than even what I'm proud about, is I'm really thankful for all that we do working together in the community. The other was to share some positive outcomes, and I think that to see people who still are in need of other services but are in their home is the most important. To be able to help people who have been addicted or had issues in the past come in and they share their sobriety with us. We don't do any of that work, but they're so proud of it. And we like to cheer them on and congratulate them for what's happening in their life. I think we just have a great opportunity within our organization to be impactful to anyone and everyone that comes through the door. Anticipated changes in our direction. Our mission has served us well for 100 and some years now. So I'm not sure that we really want to change too much direction, but we do want to add. One of the things that we want to do is become greater advocates for low and income-based housing, not only for our families that we serve and for singles, but also for seniors. The seniors are growing in this community. They come to us for rental assistance, and they're paying out probably 50, 60% of their Social Security for their rental for their rent, and the rest pretty much goes through for utilities, because utility costs have gone up also. So you're very important to us. We can't do this work without your help. As far as did we shift our delivery? Yeah, we went outside, at least we weren't in the alley, because we had a new parking lot and a new building. But we really worked outside for about a year with all of our programs. And it was tough keeping everybody healthy and excited, and at the same time being able to serve all that we do. So that is pretty much who we are in a nutshell. But I do have a community impact statement, which I will leave on the back table for you. And I would really like you to take one and to read it. Also for you to know that although this is 2021, our numbers have grown even greater. One of the things that we've learned is that it could be anybody that comes to Family Service for help. People who live in zip codes who thought they would never darken our door are now coming for some sort of assistance. So things are changing in our community. But I think all of us together, working together collaboratively, we're going to manage it all. Thank you.
Any questions?
How is inflation impacting the demand for your services and then your ability to provide those services?
How is inflation impacting your demand for services and your ability to provide those services?
Okay, well, inflation has given us anywhere from 120 to 140 people a day looking for services, where before 80 was like crazy. So the inflation has come up quite a bit. Also for rent and utility assistance, because rents have skyrocketed in the last 8 or 9 months, that's been difficult. And so we've actually taken some of our operation money and looked at our budget and said, we need to put this in, we need to keep these people in their homes. As far as procuring food, I'm fortunate enough to have a fellow on staff who has a great relationship with the USDA. And so we have received bountiful trucks full of free food. So that's where we are. As far as the Fresh Food Rescue Program that comes through Feeding America, the stores have pulled back a little bit. The food isn't there like it used to be. But we're managing. It will always work. We will find a way.
Other questions?
Stacy, will you brag about your increase of support for seniors in food?
Okay, so we took over the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. Is that the one you're talking about? Okay. So that is a federally funded state-run program. So you can imagine the paperwork and the inventory. But we took it on, and right now we serve about 800 seniors with commodity boxes. And we're allowed to choose our food, so we go for the highest grade of protein and nutrition that we can in those boxes. And then we give them out to all of the seniors who qualify, because it is a federal program, to all of the senior housing. And then now Big Sky is taking on delivering to their clients also. So that's a big program for us.
Other questions?
Thank you, Family Service.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean, for inviting me up, and special thanks to United Way, and thanks for the board members. I serve on a number of boards myself, and I'll tell you what, you guys are a special breed. Willing to give of your time, come in the middle of the day, help and make hard decisions, and also make difficult, wanting decisions for our community. So thank you for what you do, the way you give back. Friendship House was started back in 1957, also by the Faith Community of Billings, trying to really make a difference in generational poverty on the south side of Billings. And we were one of the first recipients of then United Chest, Community Chest, United Way. We've been a partner for 60 years, and over those years, over $1 million has come to Friendship House. Not all at once, but bite by bite over 60 years, and it's really been amazing. And most recently, I want to introduce my colleague. This is Ashley Erickson, my program director. She'll share a couple of client stories in just a moment. And as I said, I'm Pastor Matt Lundgren, the executive director of Billings Leadership Foundation, which is really a foundation of support for both Friendship House of Christian Service, and also the Montana Rescue Mission. So kind of a dual role. What I wanted to say is that United Way has been a great partner. For example, a few years back when we decided to survey the community to say, what do you need? The overwhelming need was for a preschool. So United Way gave us some startup funding, because anything you start from scratch needs help. So we started up a preschool for 3 and 4s, and it has been really successful. Also, after COVID, when we decided to open up a second location, United Way gave us some additional startup funding to help with that. And along the way, United Way has been there for us, not just with that baseline support, but also for special projects, and it's made a real big difference. In case you're not familiar with Friendship House, we really have 5 key programs. One is the preschool. I think we have between 30 and 40 enrolled 3s and 4s. Exciting news is, in our partnership with the Rescue Mission, next year when our new building is done, we'll have 0 to 3 as well. So that's a really huge need for that school readiness piece, right? The preschool has done that as part of the United Way goal, but really the 0 to 3 will be even better for that, really just postnatal care and the lack of spaces. So the preschool. Then we have our youth program. Youth program is for K through 8th grade. I think we have about 160 enrolled in that. We go to 7 elementary schools and bring them back either to the Friendship House or our second location at Orchard School and work with those folks on tutoring, mentoring, homework help, basic food supplies. We're having an event here in December called Dress a Child, where every kid gets an outfit. We solicit the community to adopt kids, and they get winter boots, underwear, hats, gloves, everything they need to make it through the winter, because kids grow all year long. Imagine that. Our third program is our Teen Job Skills program. This past year, we trained over 20 kids in job skills, teenagers. We have a food trailer that goes around and sells stuff. We also have a nightclub that happens in Friendship House, an open gym, and then we have Thermal Thursday, which is the faith component of Bible study. We have about 75 kids that come to that regularly. And then we have advocacy. That's kind of our last piece. We're involved in the community on the south side to really try to make a difference. I've served on the board of the South Park Senior Center. I've served as the chairman of the Southside Task Force for 6 years. We're really involved in helping to raise the money for the gazebo in South Park, in partnership with the Senior Center, also the ball field down there with P66 helped us with that. We did the spray park, we did the new playground, lots of different advocacy things for the south side and trying to help families. And then also we do adult education at Friendship House. All the kids in our program, the parents are required to take a class to better themselves, because we say to them, we can love your kids, but you need to love them more and you need to invest in them. So last night we had a parenting class, we had a grandparenting class this week, we had an AA group, an NA group. Last weekend we had a spay and neuter clinic. I mean, whatever it takes, because some of our families, you know, they have too many animals and they're feeding their animals instead of their kids. So it's a real deal. So we spayed and neutered. I like to say this, we made 400 Fidos sing soprano last weekend. It happened in our building. I know it's crazy, but we do the things that the neighborhood wants us to do. And I'm happy to report the chairman of my board of directors was a Friendship House kid, right? So it's come back full circle. Several members of the board their families were part of the original founders, or they were Friendship House kids, or people that really wanted to make a difference. United Way funding is critical, and we pray that it continues for the future. I've always been an advocate for United Way, whether it's going out and speaking at one of the partner agencies or one of the refineries or whatever we can do. But we're there to support United Way because they've been a huge support for us at Friendship House. Now I invite Ashley to share a little bit of a story about some kids whose lives were changed through our program.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for having us here and for your continued generosity. Without your help and the community help, we wouldn't be able to function. So yeah, I guess I would like to start with a little bit, about me. I started this job a year ago, and it has changed my life immensely. I've always wanted to do work that helps the community and help the kids in the community. So being involved with the Friendship House has really done that for me and these families, and seeing how gracious they are. They thank us on a daily basis. Our staff, our teachers, for everything that they do for their kids, taking care of them, keeping them safe, loving them, helping them with their homework and the reading, and all that. So that's why I'm here, is to help them and to support them. And so a story about one of the little girls that we had in our program, I'll call her Mary, it's not her name, but so this little girl, Mary, came to us, and she was very shy. She would sit by herself, wouldn't talk to anyone, didn't really talk to the teachers either. Time went by. It was about a month later. We went and did some shopping for our Just a Child, and her parents came up to me and told me that she absolutely loves the Friendship House, that she's making friends, she talks about her friends there, she loves her teachers, she's just so excited to go back that she wants to skip school so she can go there, because she had the same problem at school. She wasn't making friends, she was very quiet. And so I like to think, you know, we did that, our teachers did that, the love that they give, the support, the training that we give our teachers, knowing that these kids really need this and they need the support from us. So to me, that's really important for what we do. So thank you.
Any questions about Friendship House? I know our time is up. We didn't get the shepherd's hook, but we saw the sign.
We do have a couple of minutes. Any questions? Will you tell us about your staffing needs and are they met?
Yeah, so obviously during COVID, everybody suffered. Literally, the governor shut us down. We operate not only as our, our program, but some of our programs are actually licensed through the state, and the former governor shut us down. We had to rebuild from zero, and now we're back up to almost capacity. We have some waiting lists, and as we hire more staff, we enroll more kids, right? That's just the way it works. Our capacity is 200 between the two sites. We're at, I think, about 170, so we could take 30 more. I think we have about 20 on the waiting list. And if I could hire 2 staff, our ratio is 1 to 10. We do that intentionally to help with homework and school success. It's a really low ratio, much lower than the school, but it really is what we need to do. And if we could have 3 more staff, we could enroll 30 more kids. Just a quick brag on my staff. Some of my staff have so loved the kids and the work that they do that they have actually seen the kids. Some are who have involved in the system through Drew and his work, but several of my staff members over the last several years have actually adopted kids that were foster kids looking for a home. They've adopted the kids that have come to the Friendship House because they love them that much and really want to care about them. So it really makes a difference. And my staff don't just come to work, they get it and they really care and they want to make a difference. So thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Let me off easy.
HRDC, do we have them here today? All right, Tumbleweed, would you join us?
And I'll hand these out, I'll just take one and pass them around. And I'll start out by saying, I'm so sorry, I have a head cold. It is not COVID, I got tested, but I will try to keep this pretty quick. I have a lot of slides, but I'm gonna skip through some of them pretty quickly. So most people are familiar with Tumbleweed. We were founded in Billings in 1976 through some members of the Junior League, which I'm a member of Junior League, so that makes me really happy. You'll also notice I'm not from Billings, I'm from Savannah, Georgia. I've been with Tumbleweed for about 2 months, so I'm still learning a lot. Georgia is on vacation this week, so I'm filling in for her. Of course, our vision is to end youth homelessness. That's really what we were founded to do, and that's what we're still working to do today. I did not realize when I moved here 4 years ago what a huge issue youth homelessness is. And just in the past 2 months, and I'll tell you all a quick story about one of our youth that we serve. Just in the past 2 months, I have learned more than I probably ever thought I would, just working at Tumbleweed. I'm development director, so my job is a little removed from working with the youth and the young people in the back of, we call it the back. That's our drop-in center, but I try to spend a couple of hours back in the back every day so that I really can see what the difference is that we're making. So who we serve, youth ages 10 to 24. 10 is on the younger side of that spectrum. Mostly right now while school is in, most of the youth that we see are between ages 18 and 24. They're at risk, of course, they're runaway, they're throwaways. We have a lot of youth that their parents just aren't able to take care of them. I know Drew mentioned about foster care, and I'll have a stat on that. They're homeless, they're trafficked, which again, I never really thought about human trafficking as an issue, but it's a huge issue here in Montana. And they're the invisible population, they're the people that we don't see. So our funding through United Way is for school success. So in a perfect world, if we're fully staffed, and I'll tell you all our staffing numbers as well because they're really low right now, we would have actual Tumbleweed staff case managers at Senior, Skyview, West, and the Career Center. Riverside, we do not have it at this time, but we did use some of our United Way funding this year to sponsor all of the school planners for Riverside Middle School. So they, each child is required to have a school planner for the year. It costs them $5. Well, we know right now $5 might buy you a gallon of milk. And we thought if we could take that burden off the parents, then we would. So we sponsored 1,500 school planners for all the youth at Riverside. We have on-site counselors, so our staff are literally in those schools with a food pantry and other assistance that they need. We have a 24-hour crisis line. I'm going to run through some of these really quickly just because they're not necessarily part of United Way funding, but they are programs, and more detail is in the brochures that I gave you. We also work with youth housing. That's, of course, one of the biggest needs that we have. If a youth is unhoused, what else? I mean, it just seems like all the other issues really are peripheral if they don't have a warm place to stay, especially right now. Our Chafee Foster Care Program, and this is the one that Drew was talking about. In the brochure it says within 18 months of youth aging out of foster care, they're 40 to 50% more likely to be homeless within those 18 months after aging out. So what we try to do is make sure that we can get them before, and in our program, they don't actually age out until 21. So we try to get to them early enough that we can help them before they get to that 21 years of age. This is probably one of the programs that people don't see as often because it's not out in the public. A lot of the youth we're serving are housed, and we're working with them individually. What most people know Tumbleweed for is our drop-in center, and when I say in the back, that's what we work in the front. This is the back of the building. Most people know us for, we provide shelter during the day. We're only open during the day, Monday through Friday. We're closed on weekends, and we do not have an overnight program anymore. Tumbleweed did several years ago. Food, we serve 2 hot meals a day, breakfast and lunch, Monday through Friday. Security, showers, clothing, laundry, case management, and point of entry. So they can just come right in as long as they fit into our age range. We will meet them where they are and help them out however we can. We also have a food pantry, and it is very well stocked. After yesterday, we got a huge delivery from Harvest Church. And we also have a human trafficking program. Many of you, I'm sure, know Georgia Katie. She's our executive director. Georgia joined the team about 8 years ago, I believe, to help start the human trafficking program at Tumbleweed. So in the 2 months I've been there, I think we probably had 4 or 5 instances where she's helped out. So our data, our numbers for the last year, we served over 800, we served 816 non-duplicated youth and young adults. 1,339 food boxes, 5,700 case management. School dropout prevention is where our United Way funding goes, 1,628. So we really are working to try to keep these kids in school. 4,696 meals, 169 life skills classes, 275 hygiene, that's showers or other hygiene items that they need. And in total, we provided 17,920 services to those 816 youth. So, perfect time. I think you were about to give me the 1-minute warning. So that's really what Tumbleweed is. We're here to serve those youth and young adults. So what questions do y'all have for me? And I will tell you our staffing needs. Fully staffed, we would be at 18, and right now we're at 10. We have 1 school staff person, so we have 1 person for 4 high schools right now.
Questions?
Amy, that 1,628 on the school dropout intervention, what does that mean?
So those are the school case managers that are in the schools, making sure that the students have what they need so that they can stay in school. Is it housing? Is it food? Is it clothing? But we also have the case managers who are on site at Tumbleweed, and they also help with housing. So one of the big programs that we're working on right now is a temporary hotel program, and we're getting quite a few of our youth into hotels so that they have a place to live. Then they can make sure they're staying in school.
Perfect. But
Yeah.
what does the number mean? Is that 1,628 different kids? Is that 1,628 different interactions?
It's interactions.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, thanks,
Another
Brian.
question.
Yes.
Do you still have your fundraiser going, and if so, is it working online yet?
It is not working online. We could not, so the fundraiser that she's talking about, we're raffling off a 32-foot camper, a brand new camper, if anybody wants tickets. We had so many issues with trying to get the online version up, but we can take debit cards over the phone. So you can just call me at the office if you want tickets. You only have until November the 18th. Yes, good question, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned a 24-hour crisis line. Can you talk more about that?
Our staff, our trained case manager staff actually are on call, so they rotate around. And it's usually crisis intervention, and then if it needs to be elevated, it will, but it's our staff. Yeah.
Do you all utilize 211?
That's a good question. I believe we probably would. And I will say, I worked at United Way in Savannah, so I'm very familiar with 211. That's a good question. And having only been there 2 months, I'm still learning a lot. But I'll make sure we have that as a resource.
That's good. Another question?
So do you have housing on site?
We do not. But we have scatter site, so we work with several apartment complexes here in the Billings area. So for our housed youth, it's not our particular, we lease the apartments and then we sublease it to the youth. And for them, that helps build a rental history. So at some point, they will have a history to say, yes, they rented and they were a good renter. So we don't personally, but that's a long-term goal.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Totally. Start.
I promised Quinn I would tell everybody why we're dressed this way. We're having a, like most young children in the Billings community, we're having a spirit week. So it's cowboy, and we went for it, and then we kind of regretted it about 9:30 a.m. We're like, should we run home? Nope, we're just gonna tell them. So here we are. So I'm Wendy Counts-Wheeler. I'm the executive director at Young Families, and Quinn Curry, she's the director of health and wellness. We always like to do these together because I forget half the things I'm supposed to say, and she'll pick up the slack. Also, I was going to do a little game that included a lot of audience participation. Quinn vetoed me, and she said, not the scene, so here we are, just talking at you. So I'm just going to ask the questions I was going to torture you all with, and then we'll kind of give the answers. We find there's a lot of myths and, versus truth to what Young Families does in the community, so we just want to clear it up. So how many early Head Starts or Head Start programs are in Billings? There's actually 3 of us. There's the Head Start Inc., which we refer to as the Big Head Start when we're talking in-house, and they serve children ages 3 to 5. And then there's Aware Early Head Start, and they serve the same population that we do, but there's no connection between the two of us other than, we refer back and forth and work well together in the community, but we are actually 2 different programs. So we'll get a family member that's called and like, did my kid get in? And we're like, what's your kid? And we're like, we have no idea who that kid is. And oh, whoops, it's Aware. And then of course we are Young Families Early Head Start. So who do we serve? Again, one of the myths in the community is that we only serve teen parents and the babies of the teen parents. That was a thing a long time ago, but when we collaborated and became an early Head Start, that brought on the other population that we serve. So that is homeless children, we serve foster children, we serve children in poverty. Just recently, any child that is receiving SNAP benefits within their home are automatically eligible, just like homeless children or foster children. And then we do serve children with disabilities. We used to have a private pay component to Young Families Early Head Start, but due to staffing, we did have to take that away. We're required to just serve Early Head Start kiddos. I'll let Quinn handle this one, she speaks the best to this, but what sets young families apart from a regular daycare?
Okay, so, as Wendy mentioned, we serve children ages 0 to 3. It's free childcare for those families. But in addition to the childcare, we do offer a curriculum. The curriculum is individual to each child's developmental needs. So, a child would be grouped into a classroom with 8 students and 2 teachers, and that curriculum would be made to fit the group as well as those individuals. Also, we provide 2 home visits a year so that the teachers can build the relationships that are just fundamental to caring for those parents' children. They want to see them in the home, see what their environment's like, and get to know them on that level. So we provide 2 of those home visits, as well as parent-teacher conferences twice a year. We also do developmental screenings, and so that's called an ASQ and then an ASQSE, which is for social emotional skills, so that we know, we can identify when children might have a developmental disability so that we can catch them early, because obviously we know that early intervention is key. We also provide all diapers, wipes, formula, and food to the children in our care, so that we can reduce any barrier to the families, so they don't need to be concerned about how they would pay for that. We also provide dental, hearing, and vision screens for children, and then part of my responsibility is tracking well child care, so that we know that they're healthy. We know that if they're healthy, then they can learn. As I mentioned, we have a ratio of 1 to 4, and Head Start does require that teachers have what's called a CDA, that's a Child Development Associate, and we will pay for teachers to get that credential, which leads to some of the challenge of finding staff. I'll let them take over.
So what do we do with the funding from United Way? I quickly made sure I had my numbers right in my head, which I was close. We have an expense budget, a yearly expense budget, just over $1 million. And then a lot of folks have the myth in their head that the federal government, because we're early Head Start, pays for all of the things. And it actually funds us for about $550,000 of the just over $1 million expense budget. So where does the rest of the money come from? United Way is one of our funders, and then we, of course, seek out private grants and community funding, Best Beginning scholarships from HRDC. Fundraising is also really important to us, but that's been one of our difficulties living in COVID times. So how can the community help young families? Money, right? But not everyone can give that. So just some other things. We're really in need right now of warehouse space. I know that sounds like an odd ask, but we were running a preschool program out of the Rimrock Learning Center, which had to close due to staffing, and so all of the equipment that was in those classrooms moved down into our Cook location, leaving us with just mass amounts of storage needs and long-term storage needs. We want to be able to not get rid of all that furniture or sell it at a low cost, because eventually we'll need it. As it breaks, we can replace it. But so if that jumps into your head, just call us at Young Families that you have a warehouse space. And then awareness of our program is important to us, and then grant awareness. There's grants that you'll see in your emails that I don't see in mine, and I've had people send them to me, and then I fill it out, and here comes $35,000 that we weren't aware of. So I love when people call me about a grant. What's the greatest obstacle for us at Young Families at this time? Staffing, no surprise there. We had 6 teachers that were running 3 classrooms. Typically, we have 12 teachers running 6 classrooms. So we have a healthy wait list. We can't serve them. Typically, we can serve about 48 kiddos. Right now, we're serving 24. So if you know someone that needs a job, if they've graduated from high school or have a high set, then they can come apply. If they don't have that CDA Quinn was talking about, we will do the training. We will pay for the training. So send people our way. Not your bad employees, so.
So questions for Young Families Early Head Start?
So when a child ages out, do you try to do a soft pass over to
goal is to go to Head Start since they serve children ages 3 to 5. A lot of times our families are not eligible for Head Start once they leave us because if they were a teen parent, maybe they're financially stable enough that they might not qualify. In that case, we would connect them with child care services. That's why we had our Rim Rock location, so we wouldn't lose them in that 3 to 5 gap, but unfortunately it couldn't continue. So yes, we will help them transition to an appropriate placement.
Like Friendship House.
Yes. That's right.
My kids are at Friendship House.
Another question?
What's your, if you had to pick one accomplishment over the last year, just what would be the one you're most proud of or that is gonna tug at everybody's heartstrings here today?
We could tug. I guess I can speak to this week. The tragedy that happened on the south side last week, of the domestic violence situation, that was our teacher. So we came together, we survived, we're kind of hanging in there. But watching our staff come together during that sort of a tragedy, watching the parents kind of wrap their arms around us, watching United Way call us and make sure we were doing well, ECI's, I guess, done some sort of breakfast or something coming our way, just watching how the community has wrapped their arms around us, and then staying open. You know, my knee-jerk reaction was like, wow, we might have to close for a week while we kind of get our bearings, but we've all put smocks on and jumped in because losing one teacher out of 6 is a lot. So we have to continue to serve kids that are already there. So it's been a wild ride for a week and a half, but I would say that's a big win for us right now. There's probably many others, but that's at the top of our list.
We're so sorry for your loss for our community. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions?
I'd just like to thank you for what you do. I have a daughter that's going to turn 40 next year, and she was in the beginning of your young family. Her mom was a 15-year-old mom, and after 11 months, she decided to give her up, and we adopted her. And today, she's a mom of 4 daughters, and she's an amazing mom. So just those little lives that you're touching, it's just amazing what you turn out to be. Thank you.
I do want to just to answer your question, we do serve a lot of teen parents, and I've been there for 11 years, so I've seen a lot of them go on to have their multiple children and really thrive in their jobs. Some of them are nurses. I mean, it's really miraculous to see just what giving them that time and space and love can do. So thank you.
One of them's a 3rd grade teacher and happens to have 2 of my children at Blue Creek in her class, so lucky her.
Thank you. Thank you. MCA Billings. Thank you.
Super short, so I gotta move this down. I'm Erin Lambert. I am the interim CEO at YWCA Billings. Prior to taking on the interim role, I was chief operating officer for a couple of years and a bunch of other positions over the years. I've been with WCA for a really long time. It's near and dear to my heart. And I just want to piggyback off first. I'm going to tell Wendy and her staff that I'm so sorry for your loss. As a domestic violence serving agency, that was really tough, especially knowing that that didn't have to be the outcome, and that's why our services are so important. Based on our records, I don't believe Melissa ever reached out to our organization for help, and I wish that if she would have, or I would love to believe that if she would have, we could have maybe saved her and her son. And so I hope that what we can learn from this is that our services are available, and if you know anyone at all that you think is in a domestic violence relationship, please have them reach out to us. They don't have to be low income, they don't have to be homeless. We can help, and they can be professional, successful folks in the community, but we can create a safety plan, and we can help them plan on how to maybe leave safely or meet unmet needs so they don't have to stay in that relationship. So before I get into that, I just want to put that out there because it's been weighing heavy on my heart for the last week. And this is a good opportunity to raise awareness about what we do. YWCA Billings is completely focused now on domestic violence, sexual violence, and human trafficking services. For the most part, we serve adults 18 and older and the dependents that come with them. When I say adults, I want to make it very clear that we also serve men in all of our programs, including our shelter. So you may have heard that we don't take men. It's not true. We do. We are able to shelter them in our facility and provide them the same safety, the same duration, and the same quality of services that we provide to our female survivors. That being said, we serve maybe 5 to 20 male survivors in a year, and we serve around 800 adult women survivors, so it certainly disproportionately affects women. We have 2 buckets of services. We have our emergency services that meet the crisis need, and then we have what we call our transitional services that are a little bit more long-term, and they're designed to remove the crisis and hopefully move people into a place of stability. When people reach out to our services, they're invited to participate in our services, which ones make sense for them and helps them reach goals that are meaningful to them. So it isn't that they come to us and we say, okay, here's the 5 things that you have to do. We say, what's a good life? What's success for you? And here's how we can help you get there. And here's all the strengths that we see in you that we know will help you to get to that place. So it's not about us fixing anybody. It's about us helping people to realize their own strength and their own worth in the community and put those strengths to use and make their life better. In emergency services, we have a 24-hour helpline. We have an emergency shelter. Currently, it's a 14-bedroom communal shelter. We've been in that location since 1998. COVID made communal shelter really, really challenging. I know that Matt and the Montana Rescue Mission, for one, can relate to that. And so we took a look and said, we've got 2 problems here. We don't have enough space, and we also need to expand, and we need to do that in a way that protects people from communicable illness. And about that same time, we were incredibly fortunate that Mackenzie Scott gave us a large one-time gift of $1 million. That ended up being about 1/4 of the amount that we needed to build a new shelter, and we said, all right, here we go. We're gonna do this thing. We are building a 25-unit shelter on our existing campus, but instead of offering people a bedroom with shared bathrooms, cooking space, and all of that, these are like suites or studio apartments, so they all have some cooking facilities and a private bathroom. So it's no more having to share a bathroom with other people in crisis, other people who live differently than you. It gives them space, dignity, privacy, and I hope will maybe be more appealing to people that feel like they don't belong in a shelter, or that you know, they're successful, they don't need to be in shelter. I hope that having a private space will make them feel like it's appealing and accessible to them. Construction will be done at the end of this year. We'll be moving in sometime early next year, depending on when we can get furnishings here and figure out what the heck we're doing with a new model of shelter, but I'm really, really excited to double our capacity and do it in a way that meets best practices. In addition to the shelter, we've got the 24-hour helpline. Like I said, we also accompany sexual assault survivors to the hospital during a forensic rape exam. That program has been challenging also with COVID, getting into the emergency department when emergency departments were overflowing with people with communicable diseases, and we were trying to keep as many people out. It definitely challenged what we did, and challenged, and we lost a lot of our volunteers during that time, and we're working on ramping back up, but it hasn't been as robust as it was in the past. Hopefully we'll get there again. In our transitional services, we have our legal services programs. We have an attorney on staff who provides civil legal assistance for survivors. Again, there's no income limit, so I want people to know that if on paper it looks like they have plenty of resources and can just go out and hire an attorney, but they know that that's not their reality, we're not going to turn them away because of what their income looks like. I've got 1 minute. I'm gonna have to move fast. So we've got civil legal assistance. We've got case management that helps connect to all the other types of services, whether it be family services, connecting children and families with Tumbleweed, Friendship House, all the pieces in our community that make the puzzle that keeps people safe. We also have a housing program, so we have affordable apartments on our campus. We also have rapid rehousing and and transitional housing programs that are scattered site and help people pay rent for 12 to 24 months so they can get stable in their housing and move forward. United Way funding allows us to provide discretionary services for victims, things like helping pay for 1 month of a storage unit so people don't lose all of their possessions while they're in shelter, helping to translate documents to another language so they can divorce their spouse who's fled to Mexico, helping them get a bus ticket to their family in another community, helping them replace the tire that their abuser slashed when they ran into them at the gas station. All three of those things are things that we've done in the last 6 months at YWCA, and without unrestricted funding that doesn't have really strong ties to it, we aren't able to do that. And without those things, those women may have gone back to their abusive partner and not stayed on the path to safety. So it's really, really critical for us. And with that, I would invite questions.
Questions? In addition, oh, go ahead.
What have you seen as for your need? Is it increasing statistically?
I believe it is. So I know that statistically and like reported domestic violence crimes are increasing exponentially in our community. It's a little bit tough to gauge need because we've been at capacity for so long. Like the fact that there's more, it's sometimes hard to recognize that when we're at capacity. But I believe that there is more need than before. One challenge that we're really having right now is we have money to pay for people to rent apartments. Like I said, we can pay rent for 12 to 24 months and nobody will rent to them. And so right now I think I have 8 or 10 women who've been approved for funding and they can't find a place to rent in our community. So we need to work on figuring out how to get less desirable renters into homes and get them stable, because they can be stable if they have the pieces in place.
So you are in the midst of a capital campaign to double that shelter space.
We are.
What happens to the current shelter?
That's a good question. We're not quite sure yet. I have a few ideas about what that might look like. I think in the very short term, when we're transitioning over, we're going to just let that one be. And we're going to figure out how to do our work well in the new shelter. And then once we know what we're doing and we feel confident in the new shelter, we'll look at potentially using that shelter as an overflow site. So if we had more people that we can serve, which I'm sure we will, maybe 2 weeks after we open, we could use it for that. We could also use it specifically for our program with the police department. Officers are trained in what's called appraise. It's a risk assessment that they do when they go on intimate partner violence calls, and then they connect the victims to our helpline if they score at an elevated or high risk of re-injury. Sometimes we don't have enough space for those. We try to keep one room open, but potentially we could have 14 rooms for that program in the future. Or we might seek out a community partner that needs space to do some type of group or transitional living that would be interested on partnering on our campus. So stay tuned for what's going to happen. We're figuring it out.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
So that concludes our partner snapshot presentations, but we have a couple minutes for questions or discussions in the audience if there are additional thoughts. We have really benefited from the services that you've provided and the information you've shared today. Thank you very much. A couple of thank yous. Kelsey and Brenda, United Way staff, have been present to actually record and help troubleshoot, so thank you both very much. Kim Lewis hopefully is listening behind the scenes. She was not able to be with us today, but very much wanted to hear the presentations. So thank you, Kim. And then our impact staff at United Way, both Dean and Maya, had other commitments today, so they weren't able to join us, but have done a lot of work in connecting with the agencies and working on the impact work of United Way. So thank you to that team too. Want to thank you for being present. Definitely, as we move forward, we're working to support these programs in the capital campaign. We may call on you, agencies, to help us in that effort. As we talk to employers and employer groups, we definitely want to increase funding to be able to increase the work that's being done in our community. stay tuned. We will update you on the new partner application for the RFP online and make sure we get that information out to our nonprofits in the community. If there's anything else you can think of that you need from United Way, we did hear today some of those suggestions, and we'll move those forward to United Way staff and our impact committee. Please let us know how we can support you in other ways. So with that, we'll conclude today and give you back a few minutes and really want to thank you all for your time. Thank you.